As bass anglers, we hear about shad and crawfish all the time, but man, we can't dismiss those sunfish. We know that throughout the year that bass will transition from one type of forage species to another, but they are very opportunistic and look for easy meals, and year in and year out and throughout the seasons, it just seems that I get really good bites when I'm trying to mimic sunfish or bluegills in a body of water. Let's talk about shad and sunfish. So we know that both of them use numbers for protection, right? They're schooling fish. They use those numbers to protect themselves against predators by, disorienting them and just creating this large mass that often can confuse a predator just long enough for some of those prey species to get away. But shad, I feel, do that more in open water or pull off of cover or structure a little bit farther than sunfish do. I mean, when I spend a lot of time out there on the lake, those bluegills, they really bury up in cover. They'll get thick up underneath brush. They'll bury into those weeds really, really heavily. And it just seems to me that shad rely more on their massive amount of numbers, okay? Those schools can be just huge. Whereas sunfish, you may have 5 or 6 together, or maybe a couple hundred, but they definitely get up in that cover, in my opinion, more than other types of baitfish species, and we can use that to our advantage. I mean, one thing that I've learned by filming bass underwater all the time is that largemouth and bluegills or sunfish, they coexist in the exact same area all the time. I will film a whole bunch of largemouth and there will be a whole bunch of bluegills right in there with them. And so I guess the question is that we need to figure out is, what does it take to make those largemouth strike or attack those sunfish? And that is what we have to try to imitate or mimic the best that we can. Well, probably the easiest comparison that I can make is think about that easy meal or that easy snack. And let's refer back to our kitchen with potato chips, right? If there's potato chips in a bag sitting out, up on top of the refrigerator or something like that, or even on the countertop, we might open them up and go ahead and grab some, but there's a really good chance we're going to walk by it. But if those same potato chips are already out and in a bowl sitting on the counter as we walk by, our odds of taking one go way, way up. That's how we have to approach our lures when we're imitating those sunfish or bluegills. And there's 2 ways that I like to do that. One is I like to go ahead and imitate a sunfish that has kind of moved away from the group just a little bit, okay? We see this in the wild all the time with herding animals. When that one moves away from the group just a little bit, that's more likely what the predators are going to go after. Now, I'm not talking about, throwing my bluegill lures way far away from the cover and that structure that those gills are hanging out on, but just enough where it makes them appear that, they're being maybe a little bit too careless. But this next one is the one I really, really rely on, and that is imitating a sunfish that is not right. Something is physically wrong with them, they're sick, they're wounded, whatever it might be, and they struggle to stay up in the water column. They're just kind of kicking around and, they don't look really good. That just triggers those natural instincts of the predators right away. They want that easy meal. They know that if they attack, odds of success are good because that prey species, because that bluegill probably is not going to be able to get away. Now, the other one that we do, so I should have said there's probably 3 things that I tried to do. This last one is to imitate a sunfish that is actively getting preyed upon. We talk about this with minnows all the time and with shad all the time. When bass see prey species getting actively fed upon, it also triggers feeding instincts. They want to get in on that as well. With soft jerk baits, we may skip those across the top of the surface like that fleeing minnow. We can do the same thing with bluegill imitators. First one that pops into mind is something like a square bill crankbait. Burn it, pause it, burn it, pause it. And it gives that just that little flash of, you know, this bluegill's trying to get away. Another one that works really well for this is a wake bait. That same type of a thing. They just boom, you know, shoot out there for a foot or two and then pause. That can get those feeding instincts going. Now this next area is one I think that we don't pay enough attention to as bass anglers, and that's the color of the sunfish. Man, there's some of them, depending on the subspecies, they are absolutely brilliant under the water. They have kind of like some neon blues to them, lots of oranges, lots of reds. So with those bluegill patterns, those sunfish patterns, it's nice to have a variety and really, you know, try to dial in on what exactly you have right there. Color is one of those things that is just so important, especially in your clearer bodies of water. So really take a minute to observe the sunfish that you have in your area and what can you do to make your baits just look a little bit closer, and that includes trying to dial in the right size as well. And if you would like to watch a video that talks about what our lures are actually doing under the water, go ahead and check this one out right here, and make sure to go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.